Hello, and thank you for watching AARP Real Possibilities. I am so excited today. I get to go back to my roots, young people. It's how we started. My journey's been from working with young people to working with older adults, and love every step of it. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this show. Thank you for being with us today. Appreciate each of you being here. This is our AARP's Thought Leadership Council. And it's not all of you. I mean, there's more, but you represent our Thought Leadership Council today. Today, we are talking about voting. And one of the things that people may or may not know is during the last election, the last general election, more young people in Michigan voted than any other state in the country. So young people showed up and showed out in record numbers, in historic numbers. There were more, percentage of young people voting was higher than anywhere else in the country. Why is voting important? Danny, we'll start with you.
I think voting is important for a lot of different reasons. I think our young people see it as their voice, and I think a lot of our young people really think that representation matters, as hopefully we all do. I think that younger people in Michigan specifically came out in higher numbers in 2022 for a lot of different reasons. I think a lot of the ballot initiatives were things that young people cared about. I think that our local colleges in Michigan have done a great job with getting out the vote initiatives and trying to engage people on college campuses. There's also been a lot of measures taken where people are automatically registered to vote these days, and I think that makes it a lot easier, especially for our younger folks.
Excellent. Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what Danny said, I think that especially in the age of the internet, I consider myself also young people, but
Yes.
It's debatable. It's debatable. But I feel like we have more access to information and are able to be more informed as voters at a younger age than before. A lot of times people relied on getting all of that information from their parents. And so in the age of the internet, you're able to get that information out easier. And for me, it's always been important to vote. Just as a Black woman, there's been people before me that have fought very hard for me to have the right to vote, and so I don't want that fight to be in vain. So it's just always, even in the smaller elections, I make sure I go out and cast my ballot.
When you said it's the internet, you mentioned the internet. Is that where you get most of your information from?
I would say yes, from a variety of sources. When I say the internet, I'm not saying social media necessarily, but just the internet as a whole, because there's a lot of like organizations, grassroots organizations that make sure they're putting out bipartisan information that's available to look at, so you're not so swayed by the polarization of everything.
And that bipartisan information is important.
Yeah.
And by the way, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan, social mission-driven organization, and the Thought Leadership Council is what we call the voices of our young people, listening to them in terms of the future issues and concerns, so that AARP, when you get to be 50 and older, that we're ready for you, that we are talking about the issues that are important to you, and your voices are so important to all of us here at AARP, not only here, but I'll tell you, the Thought Leadership Council has gotten tremendous recognition nationally as well. So your voices are important, and hopefully this will be replicated in other states where older issues and younger adult issues can kind of come together, and we see that we're not that far apart. Jason, why is voting important to you?
So I actually wanted to piggyback on something that Jessica said, mentioning smaller elections. I think it's really important to vote because our votes impact everything we do, from the top in terms of who's the president, but who you vote for in those smaller elections impact things on, like, where is your do your parks and libraries get funded? It impacts whether or not you have a stop sign that might make your neighborhood safer. So I think that it's really important to vote because we always kind of view voting sometimes as it doesn't impact me. It does. And it's whether or not you vote for president all the way down to your local dog catcher.
I love that because we talk a lot about livable communities here at AARP. And that's not just for older adults to be able to live in the community for all of their life, but for younger people too. If you have a sister or niece or nephew and you've got, a stroller that you're trying to walk across the street, that 35 seconds may not be enough for you the same way that it's not enough for someone on a walker. So the local part of elections, or the local elections, are just as important. I won't say just as important, but extremely important as well. So we need to pay attention to those. Thank you for that. Lauren.
Yes, I agree. As you were talking, I was thinking about my great-grandfather who lobbied to actually have their road paved. And so it's just been a part of my family to vote, to use your voice. Just like Jessica, being a Black woman, knowing the people that have died so that we could have this right, so we could go and use our voice at the polls, and knowing that it does matter. And so that it's very important to me to be able to do that, especially considering all the things that we were fighting to use our voice for around the 2022 election. I definitely can understand why young people came out in record numbers that year, for sure.
And, you know, and I know both of you mentioned African Americans and what we've gone through in order to have the right to vote. And all you got to do is look at Pettus Bridge, look at some of the struggles that have gone on, look at the marches that have gone on. I say to people all the time, if you don't vote, don't complain. I mean, don't say anything, because even if you didn't get what you wanted in terms of the election, at least you made an effort to have your voice heard. So as we talk about this next election, 2024, and don't you always hear that every election is the biggest one? This is the most important one. They're all important. I remember going around and trick-or-treating. It's like, make sure you vote. Not going to thank you, trick-or-treat, make sure you vote. Every election is important. But as you talk about the 2024 election, what issues come to mind that are most important for you? And anyone can start. I know you've got some issues, but which ones are the most important? The top two, let's do it that way. The top two most important issues for you.
I would say personally for me, student loan relief is really important. So just kind of seeing how things fold out with that. That's one of my top ones that I've been kind of monitoring. I work in the higher ed space, so just I value education, but I also value not being chained to debt forever.
Yeah, great. Jason?
You know, I think kind of top issues for me are housing and the economy. You know, I feel fortunate that I was able to purchase a home when I did, because I have a lot of friends and colleagues in my age that they're struggling. And even for us, my family is growing. I'd like to go to a larger home to have that space, but affordability and access, affordability, the market, you know, interest rates are so high. So housing, I think, is really going to be a critical issue. And then, of course, the economy. Everything's getting more expensive. You know, and when you got two little ones who eat through house and home, that becomes more important.
So what do you want to see done with housing from the federal level?
You know, that is
or the state level even.
You know, it's a difficult answer. I think the first thing is that I want some more focus on it at the federal level. I'd love for the interest rates to go down, but you know, there's so much that goes into why those interest rates are what they are.
Right.
And I'm no economist, so I can't tell you that it would be better for us if they just went down. I'm assuming they're there for a reason. But I think really those are the kind of issues that I focus on, that I want to hear candidates talking about what they view their vision as, so that way I can take a look at what they're saying. Do I agree with that? Do I not agree with that? And then making my decision then from there.
And we hear a lot, and it's surfaced even more in the last, I'd say 18 months, 2 years, about housing, but not just housing, affordable housing, particularly for older adults. And their community after community, we're hearing and seeing more and more about adults just can't find affordable older adults, affordable housing. And it's the same thing true for young people, affordable housing because of interest rates. So housing's an issue. The question is, exactly what can be done to fix that, because that's a public-private partnership. Or you think about being shut down for COVID for 2.5 years, everything was just shut down, the economy, everything stood still. So we know interest rates are up, but hopefully there'll be a plan to get them down and get the economy stabilized again. Lauren?
Yeah, I agree with what you all said, as well as just education. That's always an area. As a mom, I work in the area of education, so just what is going on? What are the candidates saying about that? Are they balanced in their approach? So when you talk about a nonpartisan approach to that, not being polarized in how they're approaching education, because that impacts our kids, right. And how they're able to learn. I really appreciate the larger emphasis on more of an individualized plan for our students. Yes. I think that's so important, because I personally value the uniqueness of each individual, and I know we all learn differently and see the world differently. So our kids should be able to learn that way, so they can succeed. So that's very important to me this year.
Education's changed in terms of what teachers have to do in the classroom now, what they have to manage versus I know when I was in school, or when some of you were even in school, they have to manage so much more. You have to be a social worker, a doctor, a nurse, a listener, a teacher. You've got to be all of that, and it's unfair in many ways to ask them to do all that without additional resources and support in the schools. Whoever's listening, I'm telling you this. We know this, so please, yeah, whatever resources they can give to our young people, absolutely. Danny.
I think two main issues that affect everyone, no matter the age group, but specifically seniors. The first is broadband, which is such a big thing right now at the local, state, and federal levels. I think when you're talking things like housing and wait lists, everything is online. Applications for wait lists for Ingham County, Clinton County, they're 1 to 3 years long, and you have to get on the wait list online. So I think broadband and access are two main issues for every age group. In the county that I live in right now, renewable energy is also a big hot ticket item right now with wind and solar energy and renewable energy. So those are two long-term issues that I'm really focused on, and I know that a lot of the seniors I work with feel the same way because it affects them in ways right now, and things like renewable energy will affect all of us in the next 10 to 20 years. Those are two main issues that have places really in the local and state level that we can impact by using our voices, throwing our energy and time behind organizations and experts that do dive into these issues and create solutions. Because even though an issue can be important to us, it doesn't mean we have the answers. So I think supporting those organizations and the issues and candidates that can throw their time and energy also behind those issues. So broadband and renewable energy are two of the main ones for me.
When I listen to all of you, broadband and renewable energy, let's just park there for a hot second. AARP has done a tremendous amount of work with faith-based communities, getting people connected to broadband, because sometimes even filling out the forms can take forever, and there's some free services that are available. We've got, I think, something called OAKS, which is a team that we contract with that goes and teaches young people, older adults, how to use the technology, how to do telemedicine, telehealth, how to even order from McDonald's, right? And when you're going on the screen and have to do all that. And the same thing with education. There's a program called Comebackers for older adults when they dropped out of college because they couldn't afford to continue. They had families. And there's a program now for older adults that says, come back. There's some support from the state and other places. Housing is an issue throughout the entire country right now, affordable housing for young and older adults. And then education again. My point is that everything that's important to you is also important to older adults. So that gap isn't so big. Oh, young people, this. We are more alike than we are different. And that's why I love having you all here to hear about that. So we can figure out how to bridge the gaps, how to lift our voices together, young and old, across this great nation, to talk about and to advocate for the things that we want. So thank you for that. What about brain health, caregiving? Is that any of you have any family members that are involved with caregiving? How important is that to you as an issue in the next election?
In a previous role that I held at Michigan State University, we looked a lot at the economy of caregiving and the unpaid labor, and the fact that women and people of color tend to bear more of the unpaid labor and unrecognized issues, both mentally and physically, that come from being a caregiver. I think that at the state level, they're definitely trying to do things for respite care, and a lot of the seniors I work with are in a place where they're caregiving even for their own grandchildren. I'm not at an age where I'm caregiving for either a younger or older generation, but a lot of my colleagues are in that panini generation where you're caring for both the older people in your life and the younger children.
See, that's a difference. You call it panini. We used to call it sandwich, but now it's like the panini is the,
We got
on the
fancy it
grill.
up.
You got a little fancier. You got the different grill that you use.
Yeah, it's because it's pressed. There you go.
It's pressed, pressure, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I know that it's an issue, and I've heard so much about it, but I don't have any personal identification with it. But I know that it's really impacting people who have to care for others.
Anyone else seen or heard, or any family members that are involved with caregiving?
So this is an issue that is important to me. So my parents are, they're getting near retirement age, and I see my father, and my father was the type of man who, he never called a plumber, he never called an electrician, he always bought the book, did the research, and then did it himself. But he's slowing down, and because of that, he doesn't know how to reach out to a plumber, how to do all those things. And I see slowly that it's becoming more and more that he needs help, along with my mother. And because of that, I know that I'm the closest to them, that I'll take that responsibility up to take care of them, and having supports and services that can help them. Housing, in terms of they're in a house that is probably too big for them now when it's just the two of them. So being able for them to downsize, to live comfortably in their retirement years, it's very important to me, and it's something that I think about on a near daily basis when I hear from my dad, and like, oh, he slipped off a ladder, he fell 2 feet, and he might need to go to the ER to get checked out, as opposed to, when I was young, he'd slip off a ladder and it's like, brush off the dirt, you'll be fine. So it's something that I think about and worry about, not necessarily because I'm fully in the caregiving space, but I know I'll be there.
Right. Rosalind Carter said, and I paraphrase President Carter's wife said, either you are a caregiver or you will be a caregiver, or you'll need a caregiver. So no one's going to escape that. Either you're going to be one, or you're going to need one, or you're going to be able to help somebody, or someone's going to be helping you eventually if you live long enough. And it's one of the big issues for AARP because of, as you said, Danny, because the 1.7 million unpaid family caregivers. And every survey that we've done, every single survey says that older adults prefer to age in their own home. I mean, there are times in institutions are necessary. Don't get me wrong, no one should feel guilty about that. But if there's a preference, even if it's for another year or 2 years, to stay in your own home as long as you possibly can. And so the more dollars that we can have our elected officials put toward home and community-based services, the longer that people can stay in their own home and get the help or activities of daily living that they really need. So that's something else that we should be asking elected officials about too, is that, what are you doing to make certain that more people can stay in their home as long as they want to stay in their home? Anyone else?
Yeah, as you were talking, Jason, I was thinking about my husband and I have had increased conversations around this topic as of late. His parents are a bit older than my parents, and he's the youngest in his family, but I'm the only in mine. And so we're always wondering, like, what does that look like for us? Him as the baby and me as the only, like, how are we going to support our families as they need more support from us? And so what does that look like? But I did see my grandmother's generation care for her parents and what that looked like, and having the privilege of talking to my great-grandparents and asking them, what do you want? Unfortunately, while they were needing things, not necessarily proactively having those conversations, but hearing from them firsthand, I want you to be here for me as my child. I don't want you to necessarily be my nurse. I know that you need to be my nurse in ways. And so it's like, how can we give the dignity that our family wants during that time where sometimes, we don't have those options. So I appreciate AARP's position in making it more accessible to more people in Michigan, so they do have options.
Absolutely. People age with dignity. That's one of our headlines. You want to have choices as they age and to age with dignity. And so, a lot of parents don't want their children taking care of them the way that a nurse or someone else would. But if you can bring a nurse into the home to help, then you can maintain some of that dignity. But just having choices, whatever the choices are, having more choices for folks. We've got about 4 minutes left. This time has gone so fast. So a lot of times we hear, and just keep this kind of a lightning round, we hear from people that they're apathetic. They don't believe they don't believe in this democracy anymore. They don't believe that it makes a difference to even vote. Young people, older adults, just kind of tired of all the rhetoric. Where do you get your information from? How do you know exactly what the truth is versus all the junk that you hear out there? I mean, you don't know Walter Cronkite or some of those folks who used to be on the news years ago. People out there are laughing. Don't laugh at me. But years ago, it used to be nothing but the news. That doesn't exist anymore. Where do you get information from?
I'm somebody who'll go right to the source. So right to most counties have a website where you can look at your ballots and you can research the candidates. The League of Women Voters is also a great place, 411, to get nonpartisan election information, whether it's about proposal, ballots, or candidates. So that's something that I prefer to use.
Okay, thank you.
I like to use a mix of mediums. I go directly to the source, but I also look at a variety of different websites and kind of compare and contrast. And also when I'm looking at them, trying to think, okay, what is the angle from this? What voice are they speaking with? And take that with a grain of salt as I'm like making my information. But I work in higher education. I'm also I'm a professor. I encourage research, so that's just a big part of my everyday thing. Like vet the source, but also look at multiple options and come at it from different angles before you speak on something. You know.
Thank you.
That's almost identical to what I do. I have a diversified set of sources, whether, I know social media can have its hazards, but there is still good information that you can find on there. But it does require a kind of check and verify stance in terms of, is that really true? And then looking towards other sources, whether they be traditional news media, whether they be academic papers, trying to go down to the source if you can. If there's someone talking about a piece of legislation, seeing if you can find the legislation and read it for yourself.
Appreciate that. Lauren?
I'm similar. I like to go straight to the source, looking directly at what this bill is. What does it look like? What are they saying? What's different? What language is different now? Some of it is very, very small,
That's
but
impressive.
important, but also social media. I think hearing the stories and the personal experiences of people that have been impacted by the policy is important. So that brings attention to things for me where I'm like, oh, okay, that made them feel this way, but what happened?
Excellent. Thank you for that. We've got 30 seconds left, so this is a one-word response. What concerns you most about this next election? What's the number one concern? One word. Is it anything?
Balance.
Balance?
Democracy.
Democracy?
Influence.
Influence?
Future.
The future. Powerful. Very, very powerful. You all are so impressive. Many of us older adults are waiting for Social Security and hoping that it's going to be there in 2034. With all of you, we don't have to worry. You're going to be gainfully employed, making a difference. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a part of our Thought Leadership Council and for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching AARP Real Possibilities. And if you don't do anything else, make certain that you vote. Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lauren Kaler. I'm a physician assistant at Great Lakes Center of Rheumatology, and I'm here today to talk about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what is it? So kind of as the name suggests, it's a fat buildup inside of the liver that's not caused by alcohol. It's very common, especially in Western nations, and it affects up to 1/4 of the population, and it is the most common cause of chronic liver disease. As far as signs and symptoms of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, there really aren't any, so it's pretty much asymptomatic. If symptoms do develop, they're kind of nonspecific. Fatigue is a big one, and sometimes some mild pain in the upper right quadrant of the abdomen. As far as what causes it, we don't really know, but there's some things that are linked to it. Being overweight or obese is one, having diabetes or insulin resistance is another, and elevated high triglycerides would be the third kind of link that we're seeing as far as causes of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. How do we diagnose it? So the first thing is labs. If there are elevated liver function tests or LFTs, those are ALT and AST, they're present on a complete metabolic panel, that would kind of be indicative of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. After that, we usually will order a ultrasound to take a closer look at the abdomen and the liver. And sometimes if that's not diagnostic enough, a biopsy can be done, but that's very rarely done. How do we prevent it? How do we treat it? So prevention and treatment kind of go hand in hand. The biggest thing is to lead a healthy lifestyle, exercise, good diet, and then losing weight is another big one, as well as taking care of any underlying conditions. So if you have high cholesterol, making sure that gets treated. If you have diabetes, making sure that gets treated. And just make sure overall you're leading a healthy lifestyle. If you feel like you may have some of these signs or symptoms of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, make sure to see your provider and they can get you evaluated and treated if needed. Thank you.
Transportation. When we think of transportation, we automatically think of CATA. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
What's the best mode of transportation someone should think about for a loved one?
Sure. So CATA has two types of transportation services. Fixed route are those 40 and 60-foot long buses that you see on the street, and those are scheduled to serve designated bus stops and transportation hubs throughout the system. Most people don't know we also have paratransit services that are curb-to-curb demand response services, but we also have SpecTran, which is for individuals who are certified by a physician with a disability.
So that's actually 3 different types of transportation. The general transportation that you get, that just the regular bus, the big 40, what did you say, 40?
40 and 60 foot.
60-foot
Yep.
bus, and then the curb to curb, and then SpecTran. How do you know which one's best for a loved one?
Really, it depends on what your need is. If you have mobility, the ability to move around and look at schedules and figure that out, the regular fixed route services are the best, and they are the most affordable. If you have a disability that makes mobility a little bit more challenging for you, SpecTran is also a good service for those individuals.
And how much in advance do you need to call to schedule?
You can schedule it as much as 2 weeks in advance, but it is a 1-day advance notice.
Well, that's great information that everybody should know. So if they have some questions, they can just go to the CATA website and look this up and
That's
find
right.
out what transportation mode is best for them.
That's correct.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, Lola. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Paula.
Thanks for being here with us today. You know, people talk about buying gold, buying silver, buying, hoarding, whatever. What can families do, because the market's so volatile, to protect their income or to protect their savings?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things, especially as you've accumulated wealth, that you want to preserve it. And there's some different risks that we're experiencing, especially in this market today. Market volatility is being a big one, where a lot of 401ks have become 201ks. Luckily, things are starting to come back. And there's some different moves from an investment standpoint, like the idea that when you invest when you're 30 should be different than the way you invest when you're 60, because now you're going to have to start pulling some money out. Plus, there's been changes in tax laws, and taxes are going up in the future. So there's certain moves, like doing things like maybe a Roth conversion, where we take pre-tax dollars, pay the tax now, and we can move it into a tax-free growth vehicle. Another big risk right now is long-term care costs as well, and there's some things we can do to protect against long-term care costs. But yeah, the big 3 in terms of risks that we see these days is market volatility, taxes, and long-term care costs.
And there's not a lot that the consumer can do about any of those except prepare and plan.
Right, yeah, and that's really what we focus on as financial planners. We help clients plan, protect, and preserve what's important to them.
And the long-term care cost is something that people don't often think about. They might think about having a little nest egg over here when they retire, but not the long-term care.
Yeah, long-term care costs are just skyrocketing. Right now, a nursing home could cost $10,000 to $15,000 a month, and 1 out of 2 people set foot in a nursing home. And the average stay in a nursing home is about 2.5 years. Now, not everyone goes into a nursing home, but I had a client sat down with her, and she was talking about her mom who'd been in a nursing home for 17 years.
Wow. And was she ready for that?
No, I don't think
Not
anyone
anybody's
can be
ready for that. That's, yeah, and regardless of Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, you've got to
Right.
make certain that you plan.
Yeah,
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
thank you.
There was so much information shared today, and hopefully there was news that you can use. But don't just keep it to yourself. Be sure to tell someone else to go vote and to share this information. Thanks for watching.